Hey everybody, Deplorable Bobby here, and this is the way I see it. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the president in Vietnam, and then we're going to talk about a couple of other topics. We're just going to hit on it briefly because it's been all over the mainstream media, and you probably heard everything I'm fixing to tell you, but this is my take on it. You know, President Trump went to Vietnam, to negotiate a deal, to denuclearize North Korea and relief for some sanctions that he's put on North Korea. And those sanctions are really tough, people. I mean, they're suffering. Don't get me wrong. North Korean people are suffering anyway, but the government's suffering from these sanctions. And so, the president went over there keeping America first in his mind and trying to make a deal that was good for America, not that was good for North Korea. The president ended his long-awaited summit quickly, with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, because Kim just didn't want to comply. He wanted his sanctions relieved first before he conceded to denuclearize any of his nuclear sites. And like Trump said, sometimes you just got to walk. Sometimes you just got to walk and just say, enough's enough. I don't want to hear this. If you're not willing to meet me in the middle of the road, forget it. You're not going to dictate to me, the President of the United States, what I'm supposed to do when you're a third world country. So listen, people, maybe he's a second world country. I don't know. But anyway, in my opinion, this meeting in Vietnam was strong on America, and it was short on nuclear weapons. It told them flat out, no, you got to denuclearize. Let's see what happens, and then we'll talk about lifting these sanctions. But no, Kim Jong-un wanted to stand firm and show his little fat boy self as some kind of big man and say, no, you do this and then I'll denuclearize. Well, Trump said no, and he walked away. Good man, Trump. I'd have done the same thing. The second summit was geared toward denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula from the very beginning. And Kim failed to meet Trump's expectation to dismantle his nuclear arsenal. He was wanting to play some games with Trump. He wanted all he could get as soon as he could get it without doing anything for it. And Trump said no. Well, thank you, Mr. Trump. Secretary of State Pompeo said, we asked him to do more, but he was unwilling to do that. Well, that tells me if he's unwilling, Mr. Trump did the right thing. He walked away. Ain't no sense talking if you can't meet in the middle of the road. People, I talk about the middle of the road all the time. I don't like to go to the middle of the road, but I will if it means that we can come to some agreement on some issue. But I prefer to stay off to my right side, if you don't mind. Just like his father and his grandfather, he's full of games and lies, and he only conforms in the face of power. Well, I guess President Trump might have to show him a little power. If Kim thinks he's kidding, he's got another thing coming. Well, President Trump indicated he was eager to lift the sanctions that were crippling North Korea, but Kim did not want to offer to do enough to denuclearize North Korea. He wanted to keep his ace in the hole. He wanted to keep his nukes. He wanted to keep his ballistic missile system testing going. But no, Trump said, no, I ain't playing with you. Meanwhile, the South Korean President, Moon, and their media reacted, man, they went crazy. The alarm bells went off, ding, 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 saying that the nuclear standoff is a crossroad for them. Well, I would be worried too if I was South Korea. I mean, they got nukes on their border with North Korea. I mean, it's not like, they could defend themselves. I mean, my good Lord, I don't know how many people are in South Korea. I figure a few million, maybe even a billion, I don't know. But I know one thing, with a push of a button, North Korea could wipe them out in 60 seconds. So yeah, I'd be worried about this too. But just because you're worried about it don't mean you're going to put words in the ear of our president. President Moon of South Korea. Understand that. Well, Kim was willing to dismantle the Yongbyon nuclear facility, but Kim wanted all of the sanctions lifted first, like I said, and President Trump wouldn't do it. Lift the sanctions, and the old boy from Korea, the little fat man, he ain't going to do nothing. He ain't going to do a damn thing, except what he wants to do because he's a spoiled little kid. My Lord. Anyway, President Trump insisted him and Kim left the negotiation table on good terms. Well, I don't know about that, people. I really don't know about that. I think that's politics talking. I don't think Trump walked away from that happy. I think, yeah, he walked away with dignity, and he showed his presidential prowess and walked away. But I'm sure he was pissed off. I'll tell you what. I think if he'd had his way, he'd have jack-slapped that little bitch and just walked off the stage, but that ain't going to happen either. I want to talk about something it's out of the news now, but it was in the news for a long time. And the only reason I'm talking about it is because we're talking about North Korea. We're going to stay on the subject. Do you remember when the U.S. student Otto was arrested and thrown in prison in North Korea? Well, let me explain. This boy took a poster off of a wall, a propaganda poster to be exact, off of a wall, and they arrested him. They gave him 15 years, people, hard labor. Oh my goodness. President Trump discussed Otto's case with President Kim, but to no avail. Kim said he had no idea that Warren Beer was even, incarcerated in his country. But people, let me tell you something. There ain't no way in hell North Korean leader like Kim Jong-un is going to not know when there's an American in his prisons. He's going to know it. It wouldn't surprise me if he didn't have a hand in sentencing him. I mean, come on, people. This North Korean little fat boy is a joke. He's a terror. He needs to be done away with. That's all I can say. But this U.S. student, even though he was unaware of him, this poor guy suffered fatal injuries at the hands of his penal system incarcerators. Better yet, he was beat to hell by the people that were supposed to take care of him in prison. He was sitting home in a coma and he died shortly thereafter. I mean, shortly thereafter. They barely got this poor boy home before he went to meet his maker. Come on, he was in that prison camp for a year and a half. I guess it seemed like 100 years. It had to be terrifying, horrific. I couldn't see any people going through that. Yet North Korea not only put Warren Beer through that, they put their people through that, and people from other nations through it all the time and think nothing about it. They're cruel, evil, mean, despicable people. Let's not forget that Otto was in prison for a year and a half, during which such time he suffered severe punishment by his captors. He was comatose when his mom and dad picked him up at the airport. Remember, he was guilty of taking a propaganda poster, people, and he got 15 years of hard labor. Well, it'd have been fine if he'd got 15 years of hard labor, maybe, but they didn't have to beat him to death in the meantime. If you'd have got the 15 years hard labor, maybe Pompeo or Trump, somebody could have stepped in, could have got this boy back home. But no. They put him in a prison camp and then they beat him severely until he was comatose. And when he became comatose, they didn't want to take care of him. But they didn't want him to die there, so they sent him home. That's how he got home, people. They sent him home. It wasn't nothing nobody did. No politician, nobody else had nothing to do with bringing that boy home. North Korea was ready to get rid of him because they didn't want him dying there and him being an American. That's where this shit comes from, and that's where it goes. I mean, let's just stop it right there, people. That's the bottom line. That's the way I see it. You know, Otto pleaded. He pleaded with these judges, so-called judges in their judicial system. He pleaded with them for leniency. But he vanished into the prison system. And when he re-emerged, he was no longer a man. He was a body laying on a stretcher without brain function. He was comatose, brain dead. They killed that boy. I won't forget it. And I hope Trump don't. You can't imagine what he went through, people. For a year and a half. Until finally they destroyed his ability to endure the severe punishment that they put on him daily. People, let's remember Otto Warmbier. Let's remember his family in prayer. Good Lord knows they deserve it if anybody does. We're going to change the topic now. I try to always bring a little something about the children. It's not always good news. But this is a little good news mixed with a little bad news. It's always bad when there's a child involved. It's always bad. But anyway, Brock Franklin, I want you to know that name. Brock Franklin was given 472 years in prison for sexual trafficking. Franklin, 31, ran a human sex trafficking ring, and girls and women were recruited on Facebook, if you can believe that, people. Weak minds from Common Core. Thoughtless people. All you got to do is put something in their head and it sounds good, they do it because they don't think. They don't know what critical thinking is, thanks to Common Core. Anyway, Franklin's gang then drugged the women once he got in touch with them and then threatened violence on them before they were sold online for sex. Good Lord, people. Anyway, Franklin was charged with more than 30 counts of crimes, including human trafficking and trafficking of a minor for prostitution, people. Minors, kids. So now we got to the topic. We got to protect our kids. Not just the ones in the womb, but the ones that are walking around. The sentence was the longest sentence in American history for human trafficking. And I thank God for that. I thank that judge. I thank that district attorney for punishing this man. People, our kids are our future. We have to protect them in so many ways from so many people who would deceive them, lure them, accost them, molest them, rape them, kill them, and yes, devour them. People, it happens every day. Remember our children. In God's name, remember our children. This is Deplorable Bobby, and this is the way I see it. Y'all have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.